Let's talk about the threats to the border security here in the United States, specifically the northern and southern borders, and the rate of immigrants that are entering the United States, those who are detected. Um, and it's a very concerning issue because I'm somebody who, believes in, freedom of accessibility into the country, but not the way the United States government, specifically under the Obama and first Trump administrations, have handled it. Um, Trump has been, so far, the second administration has been draconian when it comes to border security. Even though deportation numbers haven't been met, according to his own cabinet, nevertheless, a lot of the people that are being deported are here illegally. But what's more concerning is the rate of deportations that is happening uh, with legal immigrants. When I say legal, I'm not talking about people that were born here. I'm talking about people that came here and that are afforded the protections of the First Amendment, even if they aren't a resident of the country. As long as you're in this country, you're afforded some rights. And this is an issue where I think the next terrorist attack will come. That the issue of immigrants who aren't born here will not have will not be afforded the Geneva Conventions because we are still in a state of war. Remember, after 9/11, we are on a war on terror, which means that this is a forever war. We're not at war with a country or an individual. We're at war with an idea. And so let's talk about the current threat matrix. And this is from the Counterterrorism Office Director of National Intelligence. This is not an updated map, by the way. And this is another issue. It seems to me that since 9/11, nothing's changed when it comes to updating threat matrix reports, updating the President of the United States, updating between the agencies, different departments, State Department, Defense Department, all right? The information is not shared in symmetry. It's basically shared unequally, and it's not updated information. But nevertheless, it's not that old, but this is currently the Islamic fundamentalist groups. Now, back in 2006, there were maybe five, but currently there are well over 25. And I'll get into this in a minute, what this means for us. And here's the Abu Sayyaf. Now, Abu Sayyaf generally hardly exists. They're in Davos, and in the city of Manila, but they're basically broken. And this is, after the 9/11 attacks and after the Bali bombings of 2003, the international community basically cracked down on Islamic fundamentalists, specifically Al Qaeda and Abu Sayyaf and Jemaah Islamiyah in the Philippines. So Abu Sayyaf is basically almost decentralized at this point. Now, here's the Taliban. A central stronghold, specifically in Helmand and Kandahar provinces. By the way, Helmand is home to the second largest poppy fields on earth, where heroin comes from. And you have a lot of drug lords. They're not Taliban affiliated, but because they're so powerful, Taliban allows them to exist. Now, under Mullah Omar, he burned about, I think it was 75% or 80% of the poppy fields. But that's not the case anymore because the Taliban could see that um, there's money to be made, and that money could be sent to terrorist groups around the world. And you can see the Paktia province, Ghazni, Zabul, all of Afghanistan, and a large part of Pakistan, especially Quetta and Balochistan. Balochistan, by the way, was home to the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed family and Ramza Youssef. Al-Nusra Front, basically, they don't exist anymore. They're called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, whose president is Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, the president of Syria. And by the way, he just came to the United States. He was invited to New York City. The United States is supporting a terrorist group. This is a terrorist organization. I mean, the Office of National Intelligence hasn't taken off the al-Nusra Front from their threat matrix. But as you can see, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is not here because we took them off the sanctions list. And we allowed for Jelani to become president because he did us a favor. He got rid of the Assad family. Now a terrorist runs the country. In fact, this man is supported by the very countries that support terrorism: Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. And look, for all you right wingers, pro Zionists that think I'm talking bullshit, you could debate me online. I'm easily defined. Come say something. Say something that where I'm wrong. Israel, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United States supported Islamic fundamentalist groups in Syria through an operation called CIA's operation called Timber Sycamore. Hundreds of millions of dollars funneled through these groups to help overthrow the Assad dynasty. One group in particular was Hayat Tahrir al-Sham under Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, who's now the president of Syria. And because he did us a favor, he's now the president. What you idiots in the State Department don't realize is that you're allowing for a Takfiri organization known for terrorism and their hatred of the West to become a country and have a military. There's a reason why I'll repeat it, that I think Syria and Afghanistan will attack the United States. And then it'll be blamed on Iran. And then later on, when the intelligence really comes in, updated intelligence, it came from Al-Qaeda in Syria and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We'll go to war with them after we defeat Iran. And by then, a lot of civil liberties will be changing here in the United States. As-Sabab in Mogadishu, in Somalia, in Nairobi, Kenya, in Kuala Lumpur, in Kampala, in Uganda. The Ansar al-Sharia, Libya. By the way, thank you, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Samantha Power, Susan Rice, all you people in that Obama administration that destroyed Libya, that didn't have a fundamentalist problem. Now look, the entire country. And I could go on and on. I'm not going to waste your time. Look at all these groups now existing all around the world. Where am I going with this? Right? Where am I going with look at this Islamic State in the Levant, Syria, Iraq, Baghdad, Amman, Jordan. Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pakistan, which is basically an ISI invention to supplant them in areas like Lahore and Kashmir to fight against the Indian government. Jemaah Islamiyah is no longer the case. And, look at all these groups that exist nowadays, okay? Haqqani Network. And all right. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean is that these are the groups that are basically coexisting. Now, I did a video where I talked about, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan under the idea and tutelage of Hamza bin Laden, the eldest son of the late Osama bin Laden, who is unofficially the emir of Al-Qaeda. It's either him or Saif al-Adil. I believe it's Hamza bin Laden. And I agree with Sarah Adams on this because I've read bin Laden's notes in the compound of Abbottabad, and he was disapproving of Saif al-Adil as being the leader. He actually wanted someone from Yemen, I forgot the name, to be the leader because he was a very good field general. And Al-Qaeda has not named its emir. Now, this is smart. They've taken a lesson from La Cosa Nostra here in the United States, where, a declared leader of a faction of, say, the Colombo or Genovese crime family will be the target. Well, who wouldn't be the target? The consigliere, really. So Al-Qaeda, so now the La Cosa Nostra doesn't announce through the media who's the leader of these different families that exist in New York. Well, guess what? Al-Qaeda saw that. And now they don't name the emir. Why? Because he could be a target. After the death of Osama bin Laden and after the death of Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, there was no declared emir for Al-Qaeda. And I think it's basically a table of different Islamic factions like the Islamic State in Khorasan, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State in Levant, and the Taliban and the Haqqani Network, all existing on a table as a family leaderships. They all share certain powers. And this makes them more dangerous because all these groups are acting on one goal to attack the West. And if that's the case, just imagine how many operatives could be used in the next terrorist attack. And I don't know. I'm guessing. It could be a little, could be a lot. But this is the thing, you won't know until it's too late. And even then you won't even know. And what could you do? Even you knew what to do, you wouldn't know what to do, right? Uh, I mean, I don't care if you're a former SEAL or you're a former special ops and you run a Twitter account, with your, armchair quarterbacking. You won't know what to do because the goal is deception, and deception is the key. Now, just imagine with foreign and domestic intelligence involved, could they deter the attacks? Will they ignore the attacks for the attacks to be successful? One can make the argument that's exactly what happened with 9/11. I'm not saying the CIA facilitated the attacks. That's ridiculous. I don't believe that. Neither did the FBI, the NSA. Now, maybe they heard about the attacks, but they didn't know specifics. Now, how could you stop a bunch of planes from taking off? But when it comes to foreign intelligence, especially Saudi Arabia and Israel, that were inside the United States in the years 2000, 2001, they were following the hijackers, monitoring them, intimate with these people. Okay. Do you think that they would know about specifics and didn't tell the United States because it would benefit them? Well, 9/11 did. Now, compare that to today. Next terrorist attack, who would it benefit? Think about it in your head. Now, the more profound experts in this field, other than myself, I'm not an expert. I'm just sitting here talking with you, what I've learned over the years and what I'm currently learning now. They talk about, specifics. Now, it's hard to say. We're just guessing at this point. But for me, I like to talk about the fundamental problem of who this would benefit. And, the facts of the case is that our security is porous. And here's I want to play this video. It talks about the humanitarian crisis growing in the southern border. Just to give you an example, I just want to show you something.
Tonight, dramatic moments at the border showing the desperation and determination from people trying to get into the U.S.
Look how easy it is.
Border Patrol agents making a life-saving decision, cutting the razor wire fence to rescue this group of migrants carrying young children, then pulling them out of the dangerous barrier. The group got stuck after crossing.
I mean, if you talk about, look, there's a river waist high, right? At the deepest point, maybe, probably head high, in other areas. But you can make it across. And there's nothing but wire. And this is the Texas border.
The Rio Grande in Eagle Pass, Texas, where thousands have arrived this week. Others finding ways to avoid the razor wire.
So they climbed onto these containers from the river, and now Border Patrol is helping them get off.
I mean, if that doesn't worry for you, that's just one video. Okay. And that's just, what I'm trying to tell you is that, you basically are at a crossroads. And that is that you have a porous security border that, God knows who came in this country over the last, say, 3 years. I'm going to use October 7th as the point, because that's when Hamas invaded Israel and killed over, 1,300 people, right? And then Israel overreacted as usual and killed, what is it now, 80,000? And, you're going to get the ire of the Islamic fundamentalist community. And of course, by default, the United States. And since it's much harder to breach Israel because they already have walls and border security, like, in imprisoning their Arab residents, controlling everything they do, the United States is much, much more accessible. So we could attack it from within. Now, there's a pro and con to this, right? We have civil liberties, unlike any other country on the face of the earth, where an immigrant wants to come to this country, he can make it here, right? You can make it here. But if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? The point is that We are a nation of immigrants. Italians, the Irish, the Polish, the Dutch, the Hispanics, Southern Americans, Asian Americans, all this, from other different countries can come here, but through the legal process. Over the years, especially in the last 50, 60 years, since the Kennedy administration, our border security has declined, and it was a slow erosion, but it's pretty rapid now. But now it's getting more attention under the Trump administration because of a faction within the Conservative Party that is inherently racist. Okay. Now, I don't mind I want a stronger border security. It's going to come at a cost because I think the next terrorist attack is going to sacrifice the civil liberties afforded to people that want to come here. I think this will shut down border immigration. I mean, immigration in general. And it'll shut it down for like a year. Nobody could get in. Hardly anyone can get out. The Democrats and Republicans will vote for this unanimously because if I'm right, that the next terrorist attack will be much more egregious, much more fantastical, much more devastating in terms of its effects psychologically and, of course, physically. But it'll destroy us up here because we're already broken, considering the domestic issues in the United States when it comes to rising inflation, rent costs skyrocketing, the lack of basic necessities because they're so expensive, that the next terrorist attack will thoroughly destroy us. Because I think this is all by design, to tell you the truth, to weaken our morale and to finally put the coup de grace, the complementary, do the final shot will be a terrorist attack of this nature, because the people will just be, unlike 9/11, where we want blood, will be too defeated to basically fight back against the government that will shed blood. And in the process, erode our civil liberties, specifically when it comes to the Second Amendment and immigration, as well as blaming it on minority hires, DEI, for example. That because our police, because our security, because our borders, because our airline security hired people based on low test scores, this allowed for unqualified people to detect terrorists. And the administration, if it happens under the Trump administration, will immediately fire all these people, will immediately re-implement national security measures, specifically making it almost impossible for a minority to get hired in these areas, especially if they don't have the proper education, the proper experience. How many do? Right now, let's go back to this graph when it comes to immigration, right? So I did a video on this a long time ago, but I talked about the current. Now, here's the current past couple of months. All right, April 2020, April 25, May all the way to August. All right, this is the national. Let me go back a little bit to show you the different sections. So here you have the nationwide total apprehensions by border security from the southwest to the northern border. Remember, south is in the middle, northern is at the end. Now, when it comes to August, 8,000 apprehensions, right? 2,600 from the north, southern border. Excuse me, I forgot again. Was it northern, southern border? Yeah, northern at the end. All right. 8,000. Southern border, 6,321, 586 from the northern border. But as you can see, northern border, a couple hundred. Southern border, a couple of thousand. That's a lot of people. Over 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 13,500 people since April that have been apprehended. Double that for non-apprehended individuals, maybe even triple. Right? Now, again, we're going to talk about at large, right? At large. That's the number under it. At large, there are 2,633, right? And that's the problem that we're facing. Okay, so here, all right, total apprehensions, you have 8,000. Total at large, 2,600. Captured, 5,400 from the northern border. At large, 1,040. Captured, 5,281. For the northern border, 586 people, 477 at large. That's a concerning number. Northern border doesn't do too well when it comes to apprehensions. As you can see, it's not that hard. And earlier on this year, here you had Donald Trump in his first 100 days, Trump 2.0, second administration, has dramatically reshaped the U.S. immigration system, but is not meeting the mass deportation aims. Now, this is, of course, April of 2025. And as you can see, his administration has raced to meet those goals, and so many others, issuing a flurry of immigration-related executive actions. It has also situated immigration enforcement at the heart of the dealings with Mexico, Canada, and other countries in the Western Hemisphere and beyond, marketing a sharp rift in U.S. foreign policy. And, you know, the issue at hand basically is how this will shape our foreign policy with these countries, specifically countries in the Middle East, where a lot of these immigrants are coming from through the southern and northern border because of our foreign policy in bombing their countries. This caused a rise of nationalism, specifically in Great Britain, United Kingdom, and here in the United States. It's a growing resentment toward minorities. Next terrorist attack will basically, you know, a lot of people will basically hate the United States. I mean, will hate immigrants in general, specifically Muslims. And what will this do? This will say, well, fuck the Palestinians. To hell with the Persians, to hell with the Arabs, fuck them all. Just like we did after 9/11. And to put it in perspective, even in 2003, during the 9/11 Commission, this was an issue about how porous the border and the northern and southern borders were. And to put it in perspective, I'm actually going to play this clip of James Thompson regarding the northern and southern border. And remember, this is 2003.
Professor Ting, let me take you back to the two questions you asked and ask you for the answers to your questions, if I might. The first was why are our borders still as open as they are? 3 points here, if you wouldn't mind commenting on that. Do you get the sense that there is a distinction between the resources and the manpower that we devote to guarding the southern borders of the United States, along the Mexican border, for example, as opposed to the resources we employ in guarding the northern border of the United States, our border with Canada? And is this a matter of policy? Is it a matter of money? And does this have implications for the ability of terrorists, for example, to cross one border more easily than the other? The second is, do you have the sense that the national security implications of border control policy have been subordinated to, let's say, drug control policy, that we're more concerned about people bringing in drugs to the country than we are about people entering the country and doing something here? And if so, is that a wrong-headed use of our resources?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I think it's important to note that historically, Americans have always felt ambivalent about immigration law enforcement and border enforcement. I mean, obviously, we're all descendants of immigrants. We all pay tribute to our immigrant ancestors and the struggles that they went through and the hardships that they experienced. We're a nation of immigrants, and we're all proud of that. But the reality is we are not willing to take everybody in the world who would like to come to the United States, and that means you have to have a system of law enforcement so that the people who are not chosen get removed. Now, why are our borders so, just to respond to your question, I mean, obviously there's a disproportionate allocation of resources, and there always has been, to our southern border rather than our northern border. But as somebody who grew up along the northern border, I can attest that that border presents the same sort of issues that we have on the southern border. The border is largely wide open, and indeed every night, every day of the year, people cross over from Canada into the United States, and we have no idea who they are. Is it a question of resources? Well, of course it's a question of resources, but it's mainly a problem of political will. There's basically a lack of political will in this country to enforce our borders for a variety of reasons. Business interests want the borders open, and I think electoral considerations come into play, or the perceptions of tightening up the border and the electoral implications of that. But, you know, why this has just occurred to me, why are military bases allocated in the United States according to whose district is in the hands of a powerful member of Congress or a chairman of a committee? Why are bases allocated that way rather than in a way that makes sense for national security considerations? Why aren't they positioned more along our borders where they can add to our national security in that regard? No one can argue that drug enforcement is a serious national priority, but I think in the context after 9/11, we all ought to understand that immigration law enforcement and border security is part of our national security concern also.
And this is going to be the problem going forward, because it's exactly the current predicament that we're in today, is that the politicians won't enforce what, you know, the intelligence services are basically saying through their threat matrix reports, that the border security needs to be addressed because we don't know who's coming in, and because the growing threat matrix in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Nigeria, in the Islamic Maghreb, and the State Department just dismisses it as unfounded and unwarranted worries. There's no, you know, we destroyed Al Qaeda. We don't need to. We got other problems to worry about, like funding, you know, the rebels in Ukraine. We got to watch out for the growing threat in China. Russia basically wishes to dominate the world. Meanwhile, the real threat isn't coming from Russia, isn't coming from Iran, isn't coming from North Korea. It's coming from Syria and Afghanistan, supported by who? Our allies. Our allies are Saudi Arabia and Israel. And it's not a conspiracy. This is a fact that these countries' governments, ultra-nationalist, ultra-orthodox, will cater to the adherents who are ultra-orthodox. But they have a common enemy, and the common enemy is socialist, communist, apostate, secular worldviews that don't commiserate with theirs. And any country that doesn't acquiesce to the whims of the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia is considered an enemy. And we need to put an end to this, because if we do not, and this next terrorist threat is successful, the only victims in this will be the dead and the rest of us who are living, because we will be treated as if we are dead, because they will kill our civil liberties, they will kill our freedom of movement, they will kill our independency and make us dependent, sicker, unhealthier, psychologically more traumatized than ever before. because you're easier to control that way. It's not so much about how we could prepare for what's coming. It's like preparing for, an unforeseen event. You can't live in paranoia and fear. The only thing I could say is this: in the aftermath, don't believe anything you see. Don't believe in anything you hear. And think outside of the ideological worldview. It's the only way you're going to win. Because if you look at it from a racist or political or religious point of view, you lost. Because you'll only acquiesce to your worldviews. And those worldviews are detrimental to the human community, because we are not all as one. We are divided upon these lines. And the only way to defeat the real enemy is to think outside that box, to be unconventional, and to be emphatic. Because the enemy that we're dealing with is apathetic. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe.